When Ethan, a self-made millionaire who always led with respect and humility, attended a high-profile investor meeting at a prestigious company, he had no idea how much things were about to change. In that meeting, Andrew, the arrogant CEO, dismissed Ethan without realizing he was the largest investor in the room. What happened next was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Ethan, with his partner Jessica by his side, stayed calm and let his quiet strength lead the way, sparking a chain reaction that would shake the entire company to its core. Why did such a small act of disrespect lead to such dramatic changes? How did Ethan's dignified response shine a spotlight on hidden biases within the organization, sparking a transformation that no one saw coming? Before we dive deeper into this story of resilience and justice, feel free to let us know where you're watching from. And if this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The modern and sleek conference room of Halifax Enterprises was bathed in sunlight, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bustling city. The polished mahogany table reflected the gleam of the afternoon sun, and board members sat around it, engaged in polite chatter. All eyes eventually turned towards Andrew Halifax, CEO and founder of Halifax Enterprises, who adjusted his perfectly tailored suit, the air around him charged with his apparent authority. He was the face of success, confident, experienced, and a man used to being in control. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew began with a carefully curated smile. I appreciate you all being here today. We have significant issues to discuss regarding the company's future direction. He surveyed the room, his gaze lingering on his affluent board members, an array of white faces nodding in agreement, before his eyes landed briefly on Sofia Ramirez, a woman of color, who had been invited due to her insights into emerging markets. His smile flickered for just an instant. Sofia's ideas were full of promise, but she had found Andrew subtly dismissive, as though her presence in the boardroom was a formality. Mr. Halifax, Sofia spoke up, I believe it's time we explore a more diverse supplier base. My research shows potential for. Thank you, Sofia. Andrew interrupted with a wave of his hand. Interesting, but I think expanding our luxury product line is more pressing at the moment. Jonathan, can you take it from here? Across town, Ethan Clark was sitting at the small kitchen table of his home. Financial reports for Halifax Enterprises were spread before him, highlighted and underlined, his laptop open with numbers flashing across the screen. Jessica, his wife, set a fresh mug of coffee in front of him, her eyes warm with encouragement. Still at it? She asked, her voice carrying warmth and gentle concern. Ethan looked up, a smile touching his lips, though the weariness was evident in his eyes. Yeah, just going over these financials. Halifax Enterprises could be an even bigger success if they just realized the potential they're sitting on. There was excitement in Ethan's voice, the passion of a man who saw opportunity not only in growth but in expanding opportunities to others. Jessica pulled out a chair and sat beside him. Interested, what caught your eye? Well, Ethan said, leaning forward, they're solid, really solid, but there's this untapped potential in underserved markets. If they were just willing to diversify, they could make a much greater impact and a much greater profit. Jessica nodded slowly. She knew this meant more to Ethan than just the financial aspect. She also understood the kind of resistance they might face. You know how these established companies can be. Ethan, old money doesn't like change. Are you prepared for that kind of pushback? Ethan reached across the table and took Jessica's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I know, it won't be easy, but this isn't just about profit. It's about making a difference. About opening doors. If I can be a part of that change, maybe even lead it, then it's worth it. Jessica smiled, her eyes lighting up. Then let's do it. We've never backed down before. Ethan nodded, feeling warmth spread through his chest. We'll start with a stake. We keep our identities anonymous. Stay under the radar until we're ready. Attend a few meetings, see how they operate, and then, we make our move. The next morning, Halifax Enterprises hummed with activity. Jonathan Halifax strode confidently into his office, his assistant Anna trailing behind, her arms full of reports. Mr. Halifax, she said hesitantly, I've been informed of interest from a new investor. A significant contribution. Significant? Andrew repeated, barely looking up from his desk. Who is it? They've chosen to remain anonymous for now. Sir, Anna replied, nervously glancing at Andrew. Andrew's brow furrowed, his displeasure clear. Anonymous? I don't like surprises. Anna, find out who they are. Anna nodded quickly before leaving the office. And Andrew stared out the window at the expansive city. Whoever this investor was, they would learn soon enough that Halifax Enterprises did not change for anyone. A few days later, the company held another board meeting. This time, Ethan and Jessica sat in on it as anonymous observers, posing as consultants. Assessing the company's operations, Sofia Ramirez was again presenting an idea, her passion evident as she tried to convey the benefits of diversifying their supplier base. There's tremendous growth opportunity in these markets. We could increase our market share by at least 15% if we, Sofia started. We've been over this, Sofia, Andrew said dismissively, waving a hand. We need to focus on our core audience, the people who've always been with us. Let's not get distracted. Unable to hold back any longer, Ethan spoke up, his voice steady and calm. Actually, I'd like to hear more. Diversifying the customer base can often be key to growth, especially in today's global market. The room fell silent, and every head turned towards Ethan. Andrew's brow furrowed. And you are? Ethan Clark, he said. My wife Jessica and I are consultants, brought in to provide an unbiased assessment of company operations. Andrew's lips twisted into a polite but dismissive smile. Mr. Clark, while we appreciate fresh perspectives, we have a way of doing things here at Halifax Enterprises. Our traditions have brought us success for decades, and we don't see the need for drastic changes. Jessica leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. With all due respect, Mr. Halifax, innovation isn't about chasing trends. It's about sustainability and growth. Listening to diverse voices could lead to untapped opportunities. Andrew's smile faltered, but he maintained his composure. Well, I'm sure you have interesting ideas. But, let's stick to our agenda for today. As the meeting continued, Ethan and Jessica exchanged glances. It was clear, there were barriers at Halifax that went beyond just a difference in vision. There were biases that ran deep, and if they were going to break through, it would require more than just polite suggestions. After the meeting ended, Andrew made his way over to Ethan, the air thick with tension. Mr. Clark, he said curtly, I hope you understand that our company has a certain way of operating. It's not something that changes overnight. He glanced at Ethan's extended hand but ignored it, turning away. It was a moment that hung in the air, Andrew's refusal to shake Ethan's hand, a small gesture that spoke volumes. Jessica's eyes flashed with anger, but Ethan remained composed. He withdrew his hand, nodded slightly, and watched as Andrew left the room. That evening, as Ethan and Jessica sat on their couch at home, Jessica turned to him, her expression one of both pride and concern. You handled that better than I could have, she said. That man has no idea who you really are. Ethan smiled softly. He will, soon enough. And not just him. The entire company is going to see that real change starts with respect. Over the following days, as the company continued its usual routines, Ethan and Jessica were quietly making moves. They increased their stake until Ethan was the majority shareholder, all while keeping their identities hidden. When the next board meeting arrived, the couple was ready. The atmosphere in the conference room was formal and tense. Andrew stood at the head of the table, exchanging pleasantries with investors and board members as they entered. Ethan and Jessica, dressed sharply, walked in quietly and took their seats. Ah, Andrew said as he noticed them. You two again. I wasn't aware we'd be needing consultants today. Ethan smiled politely. Actually, Mr. Halifax, we're not here as consultants. We're here as the primary investors in Halifax Enterprises. The room went silent. Andrew's face paled, and he looked stunned. He struggled to speak. Primary investors? What are you talking about? Jessica nodded, her eyes meeting Andrew's. We've been increasing our stake for some time now. We believe in Halifax Enterprises. But we also believe it can be better, much better. Andrew's jaw clenched. He looked to the other board members, but many of them were already nodding. The whispers started. They knew Ethan's name now. They knew his reputation as a visionary investor, a man who had brought success and positive change wherever he went. This is outrageous, Andrew muttered, but there was no hiding the nervousness in his voice. Ethan stood up, his voice calm and controlled. Mr. Halifax, I've spent my life building something from nothing. I know the power of hard work. And I also know the value of respecting those who contribute to that work. This isn't just about numbers. It's about creating an environment where people like Sophia and Raj can thrive. Where every voice is heard. Andrew swallowed hard. What do you intend to do? We intend to make Halifax Enterprises a leader in innovation. Jessica said. We're going to diversify, listen, and tap into markets that you've ignored. This company has incredible potential. And we're not letting it go to waste. The board members, including Sophia, watched with interest. The shift in power was palpable. No longer could Halifax Enterprises cling to its past. We're not asking you to step down, Ethan added, looking at Andrew directly. But we are asking you to adapt, to grow. If you can do that, there's a place for you here. If not, well, perhaps it's time to consider other options. Andrew, seeing the nods of approval from his once steadfast allies, knew there was no way to resist the change that had come to Halifax Enterprises. He nodded slowly. I'll need some time to consider, he said. Ethan smiled. Take the time you need. But know that change is coming. It's up to you whether you want to be a part of it. That day, a new chapter began for Halifax Enterprises. A chapter led by inclusivity, by innovation, and by the quiet, respectful determination of a man who believed in a better future.